in that time where you were cancer-free and living life normal again, what was your level of concern, or what did doctors tell you that, like, the risk of it coming back? Were you aware of a high risk, low risk? What was it like?
Well, anytime you get cancer, man, it's like you're pretty much walking on eggshells in the sense of, yeah, I was cancer free, but with being cancer free, you're still walking on eggshells because anything can happen where cancer can come back. They didn't give me a percentage of, Matt, here's, you're cancer free, but there's a 50% chance of cancer coming back. They didn't give me any numbers like that. So I mean, I wasn't living. Sorry, I have really bad back pain right now. So I apologize to everybody watching. If I move a lot, it's just to get comfortable. Yeah, I mean, in the back of your head, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I was working, I was playing City League basketball once a week with just guys around town. I lived a normal social life, playing softball, umpiring, that kind of thing, like just normal. But then just one MRI, man, and the doctor's like, "Hey, I need you to come back."
And what happens in round 2 like that? How is it different than the first time?
Difference from the first time was round 1, I was treated as a pediatric. So I was 23 when I was when I found out I had cancer the first time. So I was just kind of at that point where you're young enough, and the type of cancer I have, where the University of Minnesota Children's Hospital was the best plan of action. When cancer came back, I obviously was older and they couldn't treat me at the Children's Hospital. So I had to go to the University of Minnesota Medical Center Hospital. And that's where I started December of 2015. I started my chemo again, and I had a PET scan that confirmed everything. And it was literally, I was at the hockey rink in Crookston. I was at practice watching girls hockey practice, getting ready to broadcast the game the next night. And this Dr. Veronica Bakanova from the University of Minnesota called me. She goes, "Matt, pack your bags, like we need to start chemo tomorrow." I'm 5 hours away. Right? So luckily, I had, being a born and bred Minnesotan and then living up in northwest Minnesota, I had a hockey bag full of hockey skates and gear and stuff. And hockey bags are pretty, big bags. So dumped that out and just started throwing stuff in. I was just throwing shirts, throwing underwear, throwing pants, throwing my Xbox, throwing anything I could think of.
You probably should throw your Xbox. You should gently place your Xbox in there.
Yeah. But it was in there. But I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But sure enough, the next day, I was in the hospital at the U of M on, I don't know what room number it was, but I know it was in Unit 7D at the University of Minnesota. That night, I didn't do any chemo. I just kind of got settled. But the next day, man, four things of chemotherapy for 4 days at a time. I do 4 chemo treatments a day, 4 days at a time. I go home back to my parents' house in Blaine for 2 weeks, and that was one cycle. So that was 1A. Then it was time for 1B. So then it was 4 days of 4 chemos a day. And then I was back home for a week or 2 weeks. And then I was 1B. So then now we were at 2A, right? So it's 4 or 5 days where I was in the hospital straight, getting chemo and radiation. And I hadn't had radiation before. That was another difference. I'm sorry I didn't mention. Second time around is when radiation showed up. Before in 2012 to 14, I just had chemo and no radiation. But then 14, because the cancer was more serious, they added radiation on. So 2A was 4 days of chemo and radiation 4 times a day. Yeah, 4 times a day. And then 2 weeks at home, then back for 4 times a day. So 16. Yeah. So it's that was leading me up to a bone marrow transplant.
And that was all involved in that the second time, like you knew that once you got through all the treatments, then you would need the transplant?
Correct. Because if I didn't do the transplant and just did chemo or whatever, there was like a 90% chance of the cancer coming back a third time.
Okay.
A third time. And then if it comes back a third time, then not the best. So the only chance of me staying alive was to do a bone marrow transplant.
And what's that like? I mean, I don't know what any of this is like really, but the bone marrow transplant, what's that process like then?
Anticlimactic, to be honest. I did cord blood. So, some people have to wait for a donor or whatever, but I did cord blood. So it was just it was like we were all prepping for this big event, but it turned out to be this little bag of pink fluid that had to be pretty much put into me through a tube that was connected to my chest. And it was took about 20-25 minutes. I laid in my hospital bed and a nurse administered it. I had my parents, my uncle, and my sister in the room with me. My wife was 5 hours away, sadly. She wasn't able to be there with me due to, I think it was school or something. She was doing her grad program, her master's at UND. So she was 5 hours away. And I didn't feel any pain or anything like that. I just laid in bed and I felt kind of a funny taste in my mouth, and I did like those Lifesavers fruit chews or whatnot, because otherwise my mouth would have tasted like cooked carrots. So the nurse is like, you should take like lozenges or fruit chews or something to kind of get that taste out of your mouth. And I'm trying to find the picture of it on my phone.
If you find it, you can try to flash it up there. As you're doing that, though, Matt, I'm wondering since that time, when and how long did it take for you to feel pretty good again? Because it seemed like after the first time, life was normal. Did life get normal after the second time?
That's what the cells look like.
Okay.
That was day of transplant. I'm coming up on my 4-year birthday tomorrow. So feel free to send me birthday cards, everybody. I like gift certificates to Under Armour or to Amazon. And you can DM or post in the comment section, and I can send you my email. But I just love birthday cards because that essentially, Kurt, was a birthday. I mean, I got to a point where my seriously comment or email me and send me birthday cards. So I love getting birthday cards. My email is mgbishop2@gmail.com. And then if you want to send me a $5 Under Armour or Amazon gift card as a gift, I like gifts as well. But I'm sorry, that was stupid.
Well, everybody likes gifts, and I wouldn't be surprised if you get a few. It seems like you deserve it. So you get a few birthdays in a year with all that you've been through. Going back to my other question, did things get normal again?
Well, I had to be quarantined. So all my blood counts were at 0. So I was cancer-free on May 5th, right? So that was the second time I beat cancer. And then May 6th, I had my transplant. And then I had to be quarantined where I couldn't leave my room on Unit 5C, which is like a second home to me. I joke, it's my secondary address. Because since April of 2016, I spent over 2.5 to 3 years in the hospital. I mean, just drink that in, right?
It's not where you want to be hanging out that much, but you were.
Summer of 2016, summer of 2017, I spent the entire summers at the hospital. Straight. So you think, you go in the hospital for something for a couple days and then you leave, right?
Yep.
I was in the hospital for 2.5 months straight. In the same room, same floor. Couldn't go anywhere. And the biggest thing I could do was go down in the lobby or go outside in a wheelchair. Masked. I had oxygen in my nose. I had people having to push me. But after transplant, it was 2 weeks straight where I was quarantined in my room. So we think about the quarantine we are in right now with coronavirus. Man, I've been living that for 4 years. So during the coronavirus, I have a very different outlook and mentality that a lot of people do. And people get upset about me, Kurt. They're like, why do you have the attitude you have? Why do you have the attitude that you have while going through all of this? And I said, because I've been living it for 4 years. This isn't anything new to me. Having to be quarantined or whatever, it's not new to me. And I mean, that's why I have the mentality that I have. I'm very laissez-faire right now. And some people are like, oh, we get it. Like one of my doctors said, you have a totally different perspective than someone else. Because they're just since the coronavirus hit and they've had to be quarantined or self-distancing or whatever, it's just been a couple of weeks for them. It's been 4 years for me.
Does anything scare you right now then? Because obviously a lot of people are in a different mindset when it comes to fear because what has been going on. What are you afraid of? Are you afraid of anything at this point with what you've been through?
I'm afraid of getting sick again because that means I'd have to go in the hospital again. But I don't let it run my life. So when you say, what am I scared of? Still roller coasters. Don't get me near one of those, man.
I got over my fear of roller coasters, so maybe it's still possible for you.
How'd you do it?
Oh, I think the biggest thing was realizing that I'm not going to die. So if I'm not going to die, maybe it's actually fun. But normally I would go through it and just be afraid that something awful would happen. Now I just think, oh, I'll probably be okay and it'll be fun. And that's why little kids, I think, have fun mostly on those, and a lot of other people.